All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll let the people, your classmates in as soon as they show up. So we've got 3 examples here. Joseph,
Hi.
how are you?
Well,
Yeah. All right, so this is the first time that we get to see loaded up MP4s or QuickTime movies that you loaded up to the OLS. Sometimes they don't play very well, so let's just take a look at this. It seems to be playing pretty well. It looks like you've got most of your pixie dust in there. You've got to be happy with this, right?
I don't think it's that bad.
All right, so there's a couple of things to point out to you. I think that you've got a really good start. So I think that this is a really great pass here. And one thing that I would like to recommend for you is another pass, another couple of passes, really. So you've got the orb, as we were calling it, just falling along your arc, which is good. And this spread of pixie dust is really good. I think that what you need now is you need this stuff that was behind it. So all this stuff right here should be falling this way, right? And then as it goes over here, you know, you've got the spread that's looking about like that, right? And I'm just approximating the distance, the length of your tail, if you will. So when the orb is about right here, there should be this stuff falling. So all of the stuff from this part of the arc on this particular frame would need to be down here. And then it would disappear. So right about here, you know, it would disappear. Same thing over here. You've got the little thing that I recommended with the stall. So as soon as this guy is right here, obviously his tail was over here, and there's just going to be a bunch of it falling right there. As soon as it gets over here, then you've got the main shape of it, but then all of this stuff is going to be falling over here. So what you've got is a really great start. There's nothing that you need to erase, nothing you need to fix. You just need to add that little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, this is great. And you can see the difference here at the very end where you, where you actually start to change the direction of the pixie dust right there at the end. So I think that you just want to make sure you add in that stuff correctly. So that looks really good. The other suggestion I could make for you is that it looks like you're using white with a little bit of yellow in it. And I think that that's fine. And so don't be afraid to get this trailing pixie dust behind it working with either the same color or an adjacent color. I think that the other thing that you can do, well, let me just check here. So Joseph, you said you were using Toon Boom.
Yes.
So this is a really great advantage of using Toon Boom, is that all of this is working. And so just make yourself a new layer, right? And then call that new layer like extra tail or something like that, because then you can affect the transparency of it. And then as to my recommendation, give that extra tail a different color so that you can always adjust that color independently of the stuff that you've got. And then make another couple passes, like we'll review Exploding Stars today and all kinds of other parts in there, so that you can affect those pieces just independently, both as a layer and as a color. And I hope that makes sense, right? So again, that's looking really good. Hello, Dan. Hello, Millicent.
Hi, Professor. So right now I'm having a issue of the internet on my laptop. So right now I'm using my phone.
Okay. No worries.
And I cannot find a place to submit the assignment in discussion.
It's in the discussion area, and it's right in the middle. Can you see?
Oh, Pixie Dust.
Pixie Dust. And I have it open until May 31st. Right.
Okay.
You know, I even closed it on May 31st at the end of the semester, just because this pandemic has changed so many things that I understand that having a really firm deadline in the industry is extremely important. You know, at Wild Brain and at Colossal Pictures, James and Jack, every place I ever worked at, none of the studios, none of the projects ever went late. We always made our deadline. And I think the reason for that was because the production managers knew that if they knew that a Wrigley Spearmint gum commercial was due today on Friday, that they would have said, oh my God, we're a couple of hours behind. They would put people on overtime for a couple of days getting up to it. Yeah, our projects were over budget a couple of times. One of the very last things I worked on at Wild Brain before they moved to Los Angeles was a Wall Street Journal commercial. And they wanted this character that was actually rotoscoped, and the guy was talking and moving back and forth like this. And we were supposed to trace all of the frames for him at 30 FPS with the little woodcut shape, the little dots. And we could get that working and it would look fine, except that when those little dots became digitized, there were like moire patterns everywhere. There were color rainbows between the black dots. It was supposed to just be black and white. And almost immediately from day one, we were on overtime because we couldn't figure out the production process to make it look perfect. It took us 3 weeks to figure out how to get the rotoscope and the drawings to make sure that it looked like black and white. And without going into a dissertation of all the details, that project was over budget on day one. But we never missed a deadline. We never missed a deadline. And so for you, I want to just keep this open. It's not like I want to go, okay, I'll give you an extra week. Okay, I'll give you an extra week. For us, it's going to sit there, and all the other places, all the other projects that we'll do, they'll just sit there. And if anything shows up in this window, if I see any like open numbers right here in the new posts area, we'll just do that first. All right, and it looks like someone's emailing me, and I don't want people emailing me here. Dan, Wi-Fi, okay. So, yeah, no worries. Dan, use my Yahoo address, okay?
Yahoo address. So do you mean like post the assignment in the Yahoo address, or?
Well, yes, I know, but when you email me here, I get notifications everywhere. So just use my Yahoo address. And I believe I put it in the discussion area. Let me just check. Well, let me just add, I'll just put it right here. I'll just add a new topic.
Okay, thank you. That's more convenient.
Okay.
And also, so I think the last week you said this Pixel assignment it has like 2 weeks.
Yes, it's not due until
Um,
next week. Yes,
Oh, okay, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, because if it's due this week, then I need to figure a way to fix that Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah, here's my Yahoo address in the discussion area. I mean, that shows up right there. Okay. So the plan for today is I want to go over the other two in here and I'll refresh the screen just to catch up on anyone who's submitting right now. And we'll continue to work on the pixie dust. It's not going to, my lecture on that's not going to take more than an extra 45 minutes or so. And then we'll take a break. And then I thought, because we'll probably do fire next, that there's a really easy step into fire by doing a wave animation for flag. And you'll see how that works here in just a few minutes. All right, so that was Joseph. Millicent.
Yes.
So again, I think that I just wanted to reiterate that the OLS has a lag in it, and sometimes the Zoom has a lag in it too for video presentation. But let's just see if we get lucky today. Okay, so Millicent, a couple of things here, just without looking at it again. I think that you've got this tail coming from your orb that's working pretty well, but I think that it's looking like a flag. It's looking like a bandana is trailing behind it. I don't see that downward movement of the pixie dust that's falling. And I don't think that you need to erase a lot of things or change too many things. I think you just need to add or go in there and you can put a, let me just check here. You're using Procreate. So I don't know, do you have the ability to put transparency on layers?
Yes.
Okay, so you can try to do that and just leave this as it is and add the pixie dust on top of it. So remember, one of the things that we were talking about last week is that in this position, as your orb is moving from right here to wherever it's moving, that all of these little pieces of magic need to fall. So in the next 12 frames or so on two, as the orb goes over here, that all of these guys now start to fall and dissipate and disappear. So that would be the next frame. And then the next frame after that, they would fall over here. And then finally ending up going off the screen. And so if I erase this and just go back to the first part, you can see that you've got this part starting. I think that you don't have to erase anything. I think you just need to go in there and, like, on this frame right here, that all of these little dots now need, because you did you do any pixie dust at all, or is it just all the brushwork?
It's just the brushwork.
Just the brushwork. Okay, good. So that what the next step is to go in there, and this is one of the nice advantages of both using Zoom and recording it, is that everyone can see what's going on here. And so I think that what you've got the octopus thing happening we talked about last week, remember? So I think you want to be careful with that, because remember that what's happening in the world of the magic is that this thing is just it's exploding like a sparkler, and that you don't want these like little rivers here. You don't want these like spaces of black here, because you do have the little octopus. So be careful with that. I think that one thing that you can do is increase your brush size from, my guess is that your brush was maybe 20 pixels or 15 pixels or something like that, to something really big, like 30 or 40 pixels. And then just go in there and fill in these little areas here. That would be your next step. And then when you do the pixie dust on top of it, remember that this cloud shape that we were using, we were really using that to, in the traditional world of 2D animation, to guide you to where the little pixie dust was going to be. Remember that there's could be some pixie dust in front of the orb too. So this would be the application of your pixie dust just on that particular frame. But then remember that as and I also think that your orb is moving just a little too quickly. It's okay. I don't think you need to change it, but you just need to remember that now as this orb goes up into this position, that now all of these little green sparkles need to fall. And you didn't quite do that with your brush, because it's trailing behind it almost like a piece of cloth. Again, I don't think you need to change it or fix it. You just need to maybe do another pass, like in a light blue or something, that will help guide you for the area of where that pixie dust is going to fall. Imagine this. Imagine that you had a very, very simple arc like this, and that your orb was just going to come in on it, and it was just going to move at a regular rate, a regular pace, and that somewhere around right here, it was going to slow down and maybe even stop for a moment, and then maybe even take an anticipation backwards and then scoot off the screen really quickly. So if you were going to be doing your brush work, all of this stuff would be trailing behind it and falling, trailing behind it and falling. So your brush work would have to look like this. There'd be that little S shape right there. And right about here on this frame, the original pixie dust would start to disappear. So again, it's trailing behind it and this stuff is falling. Trailing behind it, this stuff is falling. So there's like a little S shape, like that. And then once it got here, once it started slowing down, that this arc would then just start like a waterfall. Does that make sense? So for however long it sat there, if it sat there for 4 seconds, you just have like this waterfall. You'd have this hose of sparkly pixie dust just falling. And then the anticipation, there'd be some over here, and then zoop, it would zip off the screen like that. And then this stuff would just fall off the screen. So that would be my recommendation, is to do another pass at the stuff that's trailing behind it.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that your orb could use a hot center, right? And I also think that when you do the pixie dust, remember that pixie dust can be in front of, it can lead your orb itself. All right, thank you, Millicent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no, you're welcome. Okay, Rob.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. All right, let me refresh my screen. The LMS is freaking out. Okay, this is great. So what are you using here?
For this one, I use Procreate as well.
Procreate, okay. And so you've got a neat little bubble brush, huh? So
It's a couple different brushes.
yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that are really nice about this, and that you've got a really interesting arc. You are playing with depth and perspective.
That actually happened by accident because I know you asked us not to do that. And then I did this like first pass, and then I noticed it started getting smaller. I'm like, well, that kind of looks cool. But
No, yeah, I think that you got lucky. And you could just imagine that if you have the notion, the layout, where you were, oh, now Zoom is deciding to be there we go. So I think that, well, you didn't get lucky. I think that you just planned it correctly.
I understand.
Is that you've got, imagine that one of the very first times I did this, the orb was going off into the distance. You know, and it was more like it was a sentient being. And I think it probably disappeared behind, you know, a giant tree or something like that. And the orb started out really big and then got really small. And it was nice, you know, a check mark for the idea. The perspective on it was actually really cool. But oh my God, it took 3 weeks. It took 4 weeks to do all of the effects for it. So I changed that almost immediately. And, you know, that was like 7 years ago or something. So I think that this is really great. Oh, clear this. Yeah, I think that you've got just the idea of the layout happening pretty nicely. Remember to give yourself another 8 or 12 frames at the end.
Okay.
For this stuff to dissipate and go away. Yeah, I think it's great. I think you got 5 seconds. In my demo, I was doing 10, and so 5 is good. So it works out really well. I would recommend maybe now putting in some light blue or yellow or even green colors on top of it, and just do the little particles. Like more of a traditional way, and then you've got it. I think that everyone's really close here. Oh, let me refresh this. Okay, so thank you for that. Remember that I would like this to be due next week. Let me see if there's.
Should I add? I was thinking about making the trail like longer and having more fall, or should I just go to fire and
You know,
head start on it? Or
a fire? What do you mean by fire?
you were saying that this upcoming after this project we were going to do fire. I was doing a little bit of research trying to figure out similar to the flag.
So no, I don't think you need to make it longer. I think that maybe some particles can fall a few frames after it.
Okay.
So right now, I think that like on this frame that you have here, I think that there is a good distance behind the orb. Let me just double check and see.
Mhm.
I think that it's within the nature of what you've got. You've only got 5 seconds of the actual clip, and it comes in quick. And I think that you've done it pretty well. And I think that adding an extra bit of falling dust at the end
Yeah.
might be a distraction for this, just because of the way you've got it planned. The only thing I can think of is just maybe a couple extra little particles, maybe defining a hot core on top of it or something like that.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, I think that you've gotten yourself most of the way through this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that all of you need is exploding stars, and we'll do that today. And then because of when we move into fire, there's a really necessary project to get us into fire, and that's just a flag. So we're going to do a flag waving today. All right, so that looks good. Thank you, Rob.
Cool.
All right. All right, let me stop sharing my screen for just a moment. All right, so remember, Javon, in order to do attendance correctly, I need to see your face. And that's not my rule, that's the school rule. Javon, are you there? All right, so let us go back into our pixie dust project here. And last week we ended on, so this is what we had last week. All right, and remember that what we did is we rendered this, we exported a movie, we used all 10 seconds almost, and we let it go to the desktop, and we said, okay. It rendered it. And the reason that we do this is because we want to see what it actually looks like. So in this QuickTime movie, it was actually quite a bit brighter than what we were rendering in Toon Boom itself. So that like on this particular frame right here, our brush work needed work. You know, it's looking a little too spotty right there. And we could do that too. So remember that the QuickTime thing is a really great tool for you. And I just use them and I throw them away. I don't save them. This depends on what studio you're working for, whether they want to actually see your progression work. But for us, we can just let them go away. All right, so what we ended on here was this pixie dust number 1. We were articulating through this frame by frame because we've got the keyframe set here. Now we can just go in here and look at it. We were just starting to draw our pixie dust on top of the cloud. And we ended about right there. All right, and so once we set the keyframe on this, we can go back and add another pass. So remember that I did these drawings right here just rather quickly. And I wanted to get, I don't know, at least out to here, just about this far, so that I can do a couple of things for you just to show and demonstrate how to make it just completely awesome. All right, and as we do this, I think that what I would like to do is just, I know we did research last week, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pause. Keep that in my eye of what we're doing when we're doing this in Toon Boom. We've already got the contrast. We've already got the light color on top of the darker background. And so I just wanted to make that remark. So let me just go through this keyframe here. And I think this stuff is starting to work okay, for sure. But let me at least get out to about frame 100 here. And let me make sure, I think I'm using this pixie dust color. Let me eyedropper this just to be sure. In fact, it is P1, which is the P1 layer. That's great. We're using a pencil. One thing that I could explain to you just really quickly is that when you're using a pencil and you're using an application like Toon Boom, which is a vector application, the thing that happens is you get tons of I'm sorry, with a pencil you get just a very simple bit of math. So it starts from position 1 to position 2, and you've got just 2 little vectors. But when you're using a brush with the same tool and you go like this and you hit the K tool, there's just so many that the vectors aren't even showing up. And so let me show you. Let's not distract ourselves. So there's a reason why I want to use the pencil. It looks like a regular pencil. In Toon Boom, these vectors are displayed with the K key. You can see your vectors by just turning them on and off with the K key. All right, so sorry about that. Pencil, keep your settings the same. We did this rather quickly. Remember that from our key, we're using just really small and small shapes here. All right, and then I'm going to go 2 frames out. Oh, and I want my onion skin on so I know where the other pixie dust shapes were. And we're just going to do this quickly. Again, I think that what helps is just the randomization, going back and forth and left and right. 2 frames out, use the cloud to guide you. Maybe a few in front. And falling. 2 frames out, watch your keyframe in the timeline. You get yourself into a mode where you can go pretty quickly. Remember that no 2 pieces of pixie dust should be in the same place, or they'll stop, they'll stutter, you won't see it. Back and forth, left and right. The quality of random should be almost a principle of art. I think that I got into a heated discussion with one of my master's students about 10 years ago because she was trying to be cool with her classmates and every other word out of her mouth was random. And I was like, you know, Aaron, random is a quality of art, but a lot of art and animation, especially animation, is planning. So yeah, sometimes things do happen randomly, but you don't want to lean on the random quality too heavily. You really want to plan this. So what I'm doing here, and remember that what I'm doing is drawing random dots, but I'm also talking at the same time, which is, it usually gets me into trouble when I do this. When we do some of our other effects like smoke, you'll see that I just have to kind of shut up and think while you're drawing, and talking and thinking at the same time is not always easy. All right, just to reiterate, what I'm doing is I'm adding in the very small little first pass of pixie dusts. And I'm wanting to make sure that each one of these little dots, sparkles, falls. And remember that we talked about this last week about being able to rotate your screen, but I want this sense of gravity here and that there is no air. There is no air behind this. There's no breeze pushing this. I'm also thinking that right here, I'm on frame 76. And that all of a sudden here by frame 76, the tail is gotten a little bit longer than it was, which is fine. It can do that. Remember that when you're doing this quickly, if you get a lot of these little shapes that end up becoming like little jelly beans, little fatter lines, look like more like jelly beans, go ahead and turn them into stars. You don't want to erase. You don't want to spend any time hitting Command Z over and over again. All right, so I'm going to consciously make sure that there's just a few little bits of magic happening over there and that this stuff is falling. Let's start beginning, go backwards. Again, we're using our cloud as a guide. Yeah, so this was quite a bit longer down here. I'm going to let this stuff go away. And I want each one of these little particles of dust to fall about the same distance each frame. I would never want them to go upwards. Consciously, if I wanted to do a test to see what it would look like if a little pixie dust became alive and went up here and it became an exploding star. I mean, I could try that. I don't think I've ever tried that. It might be distracting. It might cause our eye to see it just too much in the frame. All right, so right about this frame here, now I'm on frame 82, is I'm worried that the length of my tail is just really, really long. And I don't want to be here forever. And I believe this is the frame that last week was repeated. There were two frames right on top of each other. And that was a mistake, but we're just gonna live with it. Sometimes mistakes can be little awesome things. So this is my next frame. All right, like I said, I wanted to get out to somewhere near frame 100 so that we can see what the action of falling looks like before we put our exploding stars on here. And I wanted to do two things. One was exploding stars. And so we have this here. We have these little stars here, over there. So my exploding stars, we said 6 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point stars. But I also think that what I'd like to do is maybe one exploding star spins. And I know I did one for you already, but I'd like to do it another one. And again, I think that one of the real true purposes of doing this way is just to show you what the timing looks like, how long this actually takes, rather than just showing you the Cinderella moment or any of the finals that we already did and then saying, okay, go do it. You would not have the idea of how long it actually took. All right, so our orb is taking a little change of direction here. There was a pause right here just for an extra frame. we're at frame 90. So let me do like 5 or 6 more frames. Can someone tell me by looking at your Zoom whether you can see if I'm still recording? I'm still recording, right?
Yes.
Well, okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so another thing that I'm doing here is I'm also now fully warmed up, and I can see that any of these little straighter jelly bean lines is me just trying to go too fast. And I'm trying to direct my stylus so that it's moving in a very random pattern back and forth and up and down the arc here. But I'm also now making sure that I want to master the actual stopping of the dust on the tablet. All right, so a couple of things to remember, to remind you about. You want this thing to look kind of like a magic comet, so you want pixie dust to be above and below the line. You want a spray. All right, so let me do this one. And remember too that one of the advantages of doing an effect like this digitally is that as long as you do it correctly, you're done. You don't have to clean it up. You don't have to render it. You're doing a final pass as you're doing the animation, which is kind of fun, really. All right, so that looks okay on that frame. This is frame 96. And this is a good example here of both the tail being really long. So I'm just going to make sure that only a few little bits are down there. And the vertical movement. With this vertical movement, you have a lot of place to play with the spray going left and right. And let me do one more. That'll take us to frame 98. That'll be good. All right, save, go back to the beginning, Shift M and play. Okay, so it looks good. So on this frame, when it first comes in here, let us now do another pass. And remember, now that we've got our keyframes locked, now instead of hitting just the advance button on the keyboard, I can just use my keyframe, which in Toon Boom, which is F and G. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick like this open circle here. And I'm going to keep it the same with the Pixie Dust 1. I don't think I need to have too many colors loaded up over here. I do want to come in on it a little bit. And so I'm just going to leave that one as it is. Coming in, there's already a circle right there that's falling. Let me get it to fall right here and to fall right here. And that's good, it just kind of disappeared. This frame needs some more tail behind it. So I'm going to do that. And this frame needs more behind it. So all of a sudden I'm redirecting. I'm changing my mind. So this is the first exploding star we did. It falls and then it stops falling and then it explodes. In this frame, it needs more dust falling. And I think I explained last week just about the space that you need for that to accomplish. All right, so we needed a few more sparkles over here. And let's see what that exploding star looks like with our camera really close to it. All right, so that's good. So let's count how many frames that exploding star happened. So we see it here as a 5-point star frame. That's 2 frames, 4 frames, 6 frames, 8 frames, 10 frames, 12 frames, 14 frames. And that was it. So 14 frames right here on that first exploding star. And so you want that to be a good measure. So 14 is a good place to start. Let's look at it again. So 14 is good. It's a little slow. So if you wanted it to be faster, you would use 12. If you wanted it to be a little slower, you could use 16. So 12, 14, 16 frames, something like that. All right, so I'm seeing this frame right here was me last week, just kind of going a little too fast. And I believe that this frame doesn't have any pixie dust on it at all. And this is one of those things where your hand has memory, your mind has memory. You know, I forgot to do that one particular frame. There was one little place in the animation where there was a hiccup and didn't look quite right. And I believe that the next frame is the one that there's 2 of them. All right, and the other thing I'm doing here is just adding length to the actual tail on the orb itself. All right, so we started out this pass by thinking, oh, I'm going to add in those little open circles, and realizing that we had some other things to do here. All right, so another little thing is that just remind yourself that you can be above and below the arc of motion. All right, so this is where we were started today. And you can see that I'm now going a little faster. But I'm stopping here because this stuff didn't get taken care of right here. And this is kind of weak. There's not a lot of sparkle right here. Remember, the whole purpose is to never draw a dot, a piece of dust where it used to be, or it'll stall. This one's kind of weak. Want more in there. All right, and I got a 4-point star right there. Let us do a 4-point star falling. And again, remember that the theory of the pixie dust falling is that it falls for just a moment and then it stops before it explodes. All right, so now it's going to slow down. So I'm gonna just put moving just a little bit more and growing. Fill in some of the stuff that's missing. And then right here, this is where it explodes. So I'm just going to let it be right there. And I'm going to give it an open center. I'm going to let that go just for a moment. And this is going to move out just about 1/8 of an inch. It's going to move out a little more. Next frame. Now it starts to dissipate. Oops, little straggle. And one more. And for this one, I think that I want them all to end on the same frame, which is entirely possible. Let's take a look at that. Save it, play. All right, so that's good. That one worked good. So now let's do one that's spinning. Actually, let's go back to our original intent. Let's go and add these falling little circle bits. And we're gonna do this just as a singular pass because you don't want too many of them. It'll catch your audience's eye if you have too many. So I just did one right there and I'm gonna stop. One right here. And as soon as you've got this thing locked in, you'll see that now you can go back and forth and just add a little bit. So now go back 10 frames and maybe now you want to do like a 6-point star. And this one doesn't have to explode. This one can just randomly dissipate all by itself. It can just get smaller. All right, then the act is just doing it. So going through here, making sure you've got a big cluster of magic right behind the orb. And that there's a good random quality. This little X, I'm gonna keep falling it. All right, let's go back and look at that now. All right, so you can see that what happens is that, oh, that's interesting. This is a new thing with Toon Boom. If you hit the, oh, I don't want to do that though. Yeah, if you hit the G key after you're playing, it allows you to see it over and over again. It's kind of a cool thing. I just discovered that. All right, so this is cool. I think that now I want to go through here and make sure that each one of these frames has a nice aesthetic to it. That each one of the frames has a good amount of pixie dust before and after, and it has a good distance to it, and that it is actually sparkling. I do want this stuff to make it look like it's alive, it's magic. So for whatever it took, I just taken a half hour or so. And I'm gonna need another block of time to finish all of this. You know, I mean, it looks really cool. It's not the most difficult thing that you'll ever do. It just takes time. You want each frame to make sure that it looks really cool. Everything is with this Pixie 1 color. So I would want to do maybe a couple another passes with a couple of other colors behind it, on top of it. And you don't have to overdo those little exploding stars. It's not to your advantage to have too many of them. It's up to you if you wanted to do 8 exploding stars right behind the orb on every single frame. It would take you 4 hours just to do that, right? All right, so let me do the additional marks right here. Oops, I don't like that. And then I want to do one more thing on this, and let me show you how to do a spinning exploding star. You probably can already guess how to do that. And let's do that one starting on this frame right here. Okay, good. All right, so a spinning exploding star is actually fairly easy. we're just going to pick an open area like this. And I'm going to pick a 6-point star. All right. I'm going to go to the next frame. It shows up as red. So now I'm just going to have it fall just a little bit. But this mark right here is rotating counterclockwise. And then this one, again, your hands as memory, so just make it horizontal. And then finish your rotation. But now on this one, this line here that you drew first is going to just fall just a little bit like this, just a little bit, and then make it grow. And then go to the next keyframe. It doesn't move very much anymore, but just make it grow and spin just a little bit. So everything is moving counterclockwise, just a little bit. Next frame. So now this frame becomes more horizontal. So horizontal, make everything rotate just to the left, just a little bit and grow. And then this one is where the star is going to actually explode. So now, instead of drawing it all the way across, just draw these little parts. And remember, they're rotating counterclockwise. And then the next frame. Oh, I think I made a mistake. Hold on. And then we only have one more frame here, so let's. I switched right there between key mode and advanced mode. So now I'm in advanced mode. Right, and then we'll just let it stop right there. On this one, let's use the principle of animation and just have a couple of them last for another couple of frames. And let's take a look at that. Save and play. So we're just looking at that spinning star right there, right there. See it? Let's take one more look at it. It's nice. It works. It's kind of a cool little effect right there. Okay, so again, now I've got a. It took me. This is going to take me at least another 2 hours here to finish this part of the first pixie dust. So let's take a look and see what we have on one particular frame. From our key, we have the small, medium, open circle, stars. You can use any kind of shape in here you want, triangles, squares, and anything you want, spirals. Your job is to make it just completely awesome. And then remember to render. All right, so let's take a break. Let us take 10 minutes. And when we come back, I'm going to introduce the wave animation in the form of a flag. And that will help you understand how to do your fire and your smoke. The same principles of animating a flag apply to fire and smoke, and it's a good jump into traditional animation. All right, let's take a break.
Okay, see ya.
10 minutes. That you're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right. So again, one of the things that you always want to do here is that you want to play it, make sure your timing is working pretty well. You got the exploding stars, a spinning one. It's great. You know, it's just a really good start. It's you know, I've got to fill in all this stuff. But make sure you render it. Make sure that you take this export it. One nice thing about Toon Boom, it's going to remember what you named it, so you don't have to worry about changing the file name. I never save these tests. You know, right now I have not emptied my trash so that if I absolutely needed to, I could go back and pull it out of the trash, but I'm just going to leave it there. One thing I'm looking for right here is the aesthetic. I'm looking for what it actually renders like. So I could play it and say, yep, that's looking pretty good. It's looking good. This little tail behind it, you know, it's a little scrubbly, but that's okay. On any particular frame, you can just pause it and look at it and say, maybe I want some bright red, some purple, just some other colors in there. You can keep it all white if you want. That's up to you. You know, you can take a look at these frames right here and say that cloud is rendering quite a bit more brightly than it did when you were animating it. So let me find that particular frame. So I think it's that frame right there. So you see the difference? Actually, let me turn onion skin off so you can see. So this is what it rendered like. It's rendering quite a bit brighter than what it is in Toon Boom. And in Toon Boom, it's actually looking a lot more purple, a lot more blue. So you just have to compensate for that. In the industry, you can take this into After Effects and do a chroma key on it and pick a color, change the color throughout the whole thing. You can do a waveform on it and change everything about it. But this is what you've got. This is what you start with. This is what you've got. So what I would do is I might take that opacity down on the cloud just a little bit. Let's see what we did. We had a blur on it. The blur was at 0.9%, which was okay. If we make this a little more blurry, take it to 1.2. It's up to you. And I think that this is an advantage of working in Toon Boom, because I don't know if Procreate has nodes in it. Can you do nodes in Procreate?
There aren't any nodes in Procreate.
Okay. And then the other thing to consider is just that transparency. So we had it at 65% transparent. Remember that 100% transparent is completely invisible. It's up to you. So you keep going back and forth and just changing those settings. Okay. And so the job in front of me then would be is to just, this part looks good. This part looks good right here. I just have to finish it. I just have to go in about right here and do all of that pixie dust going to the end. And then you can see, you know, as I've taught this class numerous times, I've got a whole bunch of files that end halfway, halfway through the timeline, because that's your homework, is to just finish this and to make it awesome. Again, it's up to you whether you want splashy colors in there, whether you want to keep it all white. It's up to you. What I would recommend is finishing this at least by next week. Let me know next week if you need another block of time, and make sure that this gets submitted to the spring show. Right? So hopefully we're going to do the flag, the process, the principles of animation for the flag directly relate to fire and smoke. But you don't really need to do a flag animation for the spring show. But this pixie dust thing is always kind of a fun little addition. And whatever it's worth, hopefully the students from my autumn semester will remember to submit whatever they did for their midterm and finals for a spring show. All right, so I'm going to save this and put it away. Actually, I'm going to quit Toon Boom altogether just to clean my RAM. And I can hear my hard drive going off right when I did that. And we're going to talk about a flag. So I'm going to pause the recording because I'm going to pull some stuff from YouTube. Recording again, because I want to talk about some very specific things about these examples. This right here, this drawing right here comes to us from, it's one of two sources. It's either Preston Blair or the Timing for Animation book, which is John Hallis and Harold Whitaker. And I'll take that back. This is, yeah, this is Timing for Animation. So let's take a look at this one. This one is actually one of the better ones here. And what I'm going to do with this is I want to see if I can open this just by itself. And I'm going to put this in the classroom. And there's some very specific reasons why this one is just one of the best ones. Make sure I'm in the right class. So this is just a flag example. And this is a good one. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll post examples that are not working, but I don't want to confuse anyone today. And again, this is just the static image. All right. So this is really great for a couple of reasons. One is that it shows a really nice wave to it. There's a nice little node on the top and a nice node on the bottom. The flagpole is not perfectly straight up and down. It's a little crooked. There's a crease in it. There's a little rollover where you can see the back side of the flag on a few frames. And this flag is blowing in the wind, I don't know, maybe 12 miles an hour. So the wind is moving at about 12 miles an hour. And that's good. We don't want the wind to be too fast. The theory is that if the wind was blowing really, 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 really fast, that the rectangular form of the flag would be just perfectly straight out and would only be moving around a little bit. And we don't want it moving too slow because we want to see this waveform animation. So another thing that we want that we like about this is just the flag is rectangular and the wind is moving. And so on each one of these keyframes, which there are 6 of them, the corner of the flag is in a different place every single frame. And you can see that just on this example here in the example B, where they're putting the first keyframe over the last keyframe. And you can see that how those waves overlap each other. In some of the other examples, like this one, I will hunt you down and dress like you and follow you around if you do this one. Because if the wind is blowing at 10 or 12 miles an hour, there's no conceivable way that the edge of the rectangle could be in the same place in technical 3D space. So this is just wrong. It's wrong that the flag would be blowing that and have that much movement and that the right edge of the flag would not be moving. That's just wrong. This is a good example here, this little drag thing. But there's one in particular that was one of my favorites. This is a good one here. This is nice, this little ribbon here. But I think that I want you to do this for next week. I want you to just learn how to do the flag motion and just get it done. But this would take a couple weeks right here. And remember that the only reason why I'm adding the flag to our lineup is because it helps us figure out fire and smoke, especially smoke. All right, so this is a great one. This one right here, if you wanted to really push yourself, this flag right here has about 26 keyframes in it, whereas this flag has 8 keyframes in it. So for next week, you only need to finish your pixie dust and then do the 8 frames of the flag animation. That's it. This one, it's beautiful, but it would take you quite a bit longer. It would take you at least 3 times longer to get this flag motion in here. Now what I can do is, let me see if I can isolate this to get a better URL on it. So, this is okay. This is a little childish. The wave is not moving correctly. It looks like the wave is actually bouncing up and down. It's not working. This one's inconceivable because there's a really big arc to the wave moving left and right, and the edge of the flag is not moving around hardly at all. This is weird. I don't like it. This is okay. This is the one that I like. So let me see if I can isolate this one even. There we go. So this one is great. I'm just going to put this in the class as well. Just to give you an idea of, let me post that one. Actually, let me see if I can add it to this one. All right, so in there's going to be 2 of them. You'll have to click on the GIF to actually get it to open. All right, and please let me know if that doesn't work correctly. Again, this is great. It's got a really wonderful, very subtle wave to the actual fabric itself. There's a really great crease, a really great turnover, and the corners of the flag are definitely moving in 3D space. The only thing I would not do, this is not a traditional animation class. This is just special effects. If this was traditional, I would lead you this one because there's all kinds of wonderful things about timing right there. It comes from that source, and we found it by just looking for 2D animation flag drawing. And we like this one. So we're going to leave this one right there, and we're going to leave that one right there just to look at it before we start our animation here. All right, so I'm going to start Harmony again. This is just going to be Billy B underscore flag underscore V1. I don't need this to be 1920 by 1080. This is just really a test. So I'm going to take it down to 1280 by 720. I'm going to create the shot. Toon Boom is going to think about it for a moment. And there we go. Okay, so remember in Toon Boom, nothing works unless you have a color card. And I want the color card to be underneath my drawing. This is going to be my background drawing. So I'm just going to change my layer 1 to background. I'm going to give myself a new drawing layer. And this is just going to be my arc layer or my layout layer. I'm just add and close this. All right, so on the background, what I want is I want a flagpole. So I'm just going to use a straight line. I'm going to do the same thing that I always do. I'm going to look at this black color. I'm going to make a new black color. I'm going to double click. I'm going to open up the wheel mode. And this is going to be just, it's on the background layer. So this is going to be BG color. I want some sort of blue. I'm going to put this away. And I'm going to create a flag. A lot of times what I'll do is just in my pencil mode on the layout layer, because we can always just turn that off. It's just do a little thumbnail. So I'm going to go back and look at this one. This is what we were following. And I'm going to do, I want the flag to be, I want the flagpole to be a little crooked. I want a nice little wave form here. I want the flag to be away from the flagpole like this. I want that little break right there. So I want to just kind of do that. And remember that the flag is rectangular, so try your mightiest to make sure that you got no squash and stretch happening on the edge of the flag up there. Make the flag relatively big inside. So that's just my little thumbnail. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm shooting for. Do a couple of those if you want. All right. So on my background then, still with this background color, I'm just gonna create, I'm gonna use my geometry tool to create a perfect circle. And then I'm gonna use my line tool to create a perfect line. I'm gonna hold the shift key down. I'm gonna Z that. I'm gonna create a perfect line straight down. And it doesn't work in any other application except for Toon Boom, where you can hold your shift key and create a line that is on an arc. So I'm just gonna do this. And it creates this really thin little line right there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate my screen just a little bit. And I'm gonna try to see what it's doing, it's snapping. So I don't want that. Let me get about this far. And that's a pretty good flag right there. All right, so now I'm gonna select this. Oh, and by the way, one of the things in Toon Boom is that you can just snap through the vector. That's just the really greatest thing. I'm gonna shift select this and I'm gonna come out from it a little bit, and it's rotating on the pivot point, which is fine. And I'm gonna give myself that little rotation. I'm gonna move it. I know my thumbnail, I want my flag to be about right here. So that's good. Remember, for all you Toon Boom users, that underneath the main select tool, if you hold it down, you can reposition all drawings in any particular layer. You know, so that's really great. All right, so this is only going to need 8 drawings. So I'm going to just take my duration here down to just 8 drawings. We can do this in just 8 drawings. So I'm going to click on this frame. I'm going to increase my view of the timeline, and I'm going to bring this down to 8 drawings. 8 drawings, that's all I need. Take my background and F5 it out to the end of the shot, and that's fine. You can paint this if you want, it doesn't matter. And my layout is here. It's only for 1 frame, that's fine. I'm going to need my rough flag. So I'm going to give myself a drawing. This is just going to be flag _1. Oops. Underscore R. You know, you look at that, we understand flag R, that's not too long of a name, it's gonna be fine. Here, I'm gonna create a new color, and it's gonna be the same as the layer name. So it's just gonna be flag 1. Say okay, put it away. Pencil. Settings. Oh, hold on a second, I can't see my properties. All right, so my properties are I've got a 5-point line with 5 smoothing. In Toon Boom, if you hit this triangle, you get your other pencil properties. And you can play around with these, but the default is actually pretty good. What you're looking for is that you want this line to be a pencil line. You want to make it look like it's a pencil. If you get the smoothing up too far, it'll just, wait, is the center line smoothing? I forget which setting this was. I never change it. Center line smoothing. Yeah, it'll tweak your actual drawing. And this is one thing about using a pencil with a vector application. So the idea here is that, and let me give you just a little hint, is that sometimes you need to draw little circles. And if Toon Boom changes the shape of that little circle too much, then that means these settings are wrong. So I'm going to take these back down to what they were. This was 5, and this was 5. And I'm going to, oh, hold on a second. So this is behaving more like a pencil. So this 5 over 20%, it's good. Oh, hold on a second. So in Toon Boom, if you hold your command button down, you can select things and then just delete them. So the command button, I forget what it is on the PC. Is it Control or Windows? It's just a momentary jump to the selection tool. So you can just select things. Okay, I'm going to come back out from this a little bit. And on my layout layer, and I don't have a layout color, so I'm just going to use the flag color, which is fine. I'm going to put in the grommets first. So I'm just going to give myself some grommets. This is not moving yet. And so this one's a little weak. I'm gonna bring this grommet down just a little bit. I want the flag to be a little wider. All right. Yep. Okay, good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this line right here. I'm going to follow my example and put those little waves in there. But I'm going to start mine by going up. And I don't like that. It's not quite as. There, I like that. All right, so there's a rotation, our camera is rotated here. So the flag is rectangular, so make sure that you bring the bottom of the arc with you and make that flag rectangular. That looks okay right there. It's a little funky down here. I'm going to redo it. Like that, a little better. All right, so this first keyframe, I'm just going to give myself the crease. Nope, we're going to have to do the crease later, I think. All right, we're on our layout layer here. And so maybe it's just this red color. I'm going to pick another color and I'm going to do my arcs. All right, so what's happening here is that you've got a node on top and a node on the bottom. What's actually happening is that this wave is extended to the left and to the right. So this little open circle here is the top of the node is going to move from this position to this position in 8 drawings. And then so this is a closed circle. And then this is going to be an open circle. And it's going to move from that position to this position in 8 frames. This little X is going to move from this position to this position down here in 8 frames. So this will just be a little dot. So that's how this works. So our arc layer then is that the arc looks like this. And I can just pick a different color just so you can see it. So that's the top of the arc. That's the bottom of the arc. It's close. All right, so what you've got is you've got this waveform moving from left to right in 8 different drawings. So in this position, this is drawing number 1. Hey, guess what? This is drawing number 1 as well. On this arc right here, we're going to pick a position about halfway, and that's going to be our breakdown position. And then we're going to pick positions that are a quarter and then an eighth. And we're going to count. We're going to count on 2. So this is going to be 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. 15 lasts for 2 frames, so that's a total of 16 drawings. So even though we've got 8 drawings, I'm going to remind myself that we actually need 16 frames. So I'm going to F5 the background out. I'm going to F5 the layout as well, just so we don't lose it. All right, so we started at the top of the node right here, but we've got to do this drawing right here. And technically this drawing too. Anybody want to take a guess at what the name of this drawing, what number this drawing right here is? Take a guess, Millicent, take a guess.
Would it be -1?
Nope. The drawing that comes right before 1. What drawing comes right before 1?
15?
Yeah, so this is drawing 15. And then this is drawing 13. And so we're going to leave that timing there. And we're going to also pay attention to this distance that's moving here. It's moving the same distance every single frame. That's important. But what's also important is to know that if I were to take this line right here, this little wavy line, and just copy it and paste it this distance every single frame, we would get a waveform. And you can use this waveform for a flag, for fire, for smoke, for ripples in the water. You can use this everywhere. Has anyone animated a wave before? Or a flag before in animation? Anybody? Speak up. Okay. So for all of you, this might be your first time animating a wave. But this is the theory, is that the wind is moving at a steady rate. It's not slowing down, it's not speeding up, it's just moving at a steady pace. For us, it's moving on this arc. It's not straight across. Our camera is tilted. You know, it's not that the actual flag would be like this. In a real world, it would be straight up and down. But for interest's sake, we're just canting our angle just a little bit just to make it more interesting. So understand that the arc defines the direction of the motion. And that what we're going to pay attention to are these nodes right here. On our flag R, we're going to use our flag R color. And I need to change this name because it came in as flag 1. I want to just make this rough at first. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy. Actually, what I want to do is this layout here. I want to put a node on it because I want it to just be really light. Select all, separate every node by 25 pixels. Use my hand tool to move this over here. I want my layout, deselect layout, to have a transparency node on it. So I'm going to put the layout going into the transparency, going into the composite, move the transparency over, go back to color mode, go back to timeline. In the transparency, I want to make this, it's already 50% transparent on the layout. So I'm just going to make it a little lighter and a little lighter still. I'm just clicking and dragging. And a little lighter still, 86, that's fine right there. Close this. Okay, so now on our flag rough layer with the flag rough color with a pencil, I'm just going to copy this flag. Oh, I realize I'm going to do something just a little different. bear with me for just 1 second. I'm going to create another drawing layer. And this one, I'm going to call it grommet. Add and close. All right, so I'm going to need another grommet color, and you'll understand why here in just a second. So this is going to be grommet. Grommet, it's the wrong trousers and they've gone wrong. Grommet. All right, so I want this. I'm on the grommet layer. I'm going to just come in here a little bit. I'm going to give myself just a grommet there and a grommet here. Technically, I want that grommet to move around just a little bit. So I'm going to take this out on 2s, and I'm going to go to the next drawing here, turn my onion skin on, and just copy it as well as I can. And this is going to wiggle around a little bit. This is going to be what's called a moving hold. So I can just keep doing this. I can just go to the next frame, and it's just this little open circle thingy right here. And I can just, the well as I can is just to copy this 8 times. And it's just going to wiggle around. If anybody remembers seeing Ed, Ed and Eddie or Dr. Katz, there's a whole bunch of cartoons out there that use moving holds. And you just take the shape, the drawing, the character, whatever it is, and you trace it back as well as you can, as close as you can to the original. You're never going to get it perfect. It's going to wiggle around, it's going to shake around. And in animation, it's called a moving hold. So this grommet is just sitting there, but we don't want it to be dead. We don't want it to be in dead space. We want it to just wiggle around. The flag is moving in the wind. And so this grommet should be moving in the wind as well. And I don't like that. I'm going to redo that one. All right, so let's see what that looks like. I'm going to extend this exposure by 1 frame. I'm going to save this. I'm going to turn the loop on and play. All right, so it's moving around a little too much. I might copy and paste it if I was doing it again, but that's okay. Flag rough. On the flag rough with the flag rough color, I'm going to take this line right here, and I'm just going to trace it from the layout. Oops, hold on. All right, so instead of drawing this over and over again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my command button to copy this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to extend this exposure by going to frame number 3 and then tracing this back. So this is just my trace back as well as I can. I'm going to go out to the frame number 5 and paste my original drawing. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to trace it again as well as I can. A moving hold. I'm going to go out 2 frames and paste my original. I'm going to go out here and trace this back. Just as well as I can. Hold it, good. Go out here, paste the original. Go out here, trace it back. And then hold this for 1 extra frame. So now let's play this. And that's a moving hold. And that's just about as much motion. I think that the grommets are a little bit out of control. I might use that same technique with the grommets is draw the first one, copy it, go to the frame 3, trace it. Hey, and then paste the original in there. So there's two different forms of wave happening here, a moving hold happening. So the moving hold on this edge of the flag is okay. It's just moving around. But I think the grommets are swimming around just a little too much. That's okay. All right, so now for the flag in the rough, we're going to do a couple of things here. On our flag number rough 1, these are already keyed with this line. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate our screen and just copy the first flag. It's rough, so I can go back in and clean this up. Another layer. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this back and I'm going to look at that. It's fine, but I'm going to go over here and make a little chart on my layout layer. What we've actually got is frame number 1 animating into frame number 1 again. Does anyone not understand what a chart is in animation? Animators should have some clue. So what this is just I'm breaking down the arc that's moving on this slight angle here into just a graphic straight line. So our breakdown position is 9. So I'm just going to put 9 in there. That's the next drawing we're going to do. And that's halfway between drawing 1 and drawing 1 again. Now, one of the things that is important to know about this going from 1 into 1 again is the idea of cycling in animation. So when I click on this and say, hey, you know what? In games, we talk about cycling a lot. But in the traditional animation classes, the traditional animation world, cycling was only used as a production tool to save money. At Disney, they would just draw everything brand new. So that you would never see a cycle, whatever. But here we're going to go halfway. Oops, what am I doing? So right here, I'm going to go on quarters. And then I'm going to go on eighths. And we're going to number these just so that we know what we're doing. We're going from drawing 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 is a breakdown, 11, 13, and 15. Oops, hold on. All right, so the first drawing we're going to do is drawing 9. We're going to do drawing 5, and then we're going to do drawing 13, and then we're going to do a bunch of in-betweens. All right, so on drawing 9, on my flag rough layer, this node right here is going to start right here. So this shape right here is going to go like this. And I'm going to just stop it right there. And on the same thing down here, this little open circle is going from there to there. And I'm going to stop it right there. And I'm going to let it go like this, just a little bit. This is the rough layer, remember. And I'm just going to let it go like that. So that's the beginning of our wave. If I wanted to animate this wave like water, I would animate it all the way across. I would go like this. And like this, right? Because that's what you see here. Everyone pick that up. But in our example, this part of the wave is connected to the grommet, and this part of the wave is the leading edge, the corner of the flag. Now let's go back to the one that we hated, which I don't think I see anymore. Oh, this one. So this one, it's impossible. It's just absolutely terrible against all laws of nature that the edge of the flag would literally just be going up and down, straight up and down, and that's not right. In our example, what we're going to do here on our layout layer with this red color is we're going to say, hey, you know what? This is moving in 3D space. And I'm going to give myself like this little arc. And maybe I'll do the same one on the bottom just to keep it the same. So it's going to move in a circle 8. On the circle 8, this is drawing number 1. And then this is drawing number 1. So I'm going to decide whether I want this to move counterclockwise or clockwise. I'm just going to move it counterclockwise. And so 1 going all the way back through the circle 8 halfway is our 9 position. Again, I'm drawing this on my layout so I can always kill it later. Breakdown positions get an underline. So I'm going to go from 1. The secondary breakdown is 5, which is right here. So I'm going to just draw here. This is 5. And then the other secondary breakdown is 13. So that's here. And then I'm going to put in the in between. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 over here. 13 and 15. If I put 15 right there, I'll be able to see this arc a little more clearly. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15, just to keep things copacetic. All right, so now we're on our rough flag layer on drawing number 9. Make sure we're on the right drawing number 9. We can start, well, actually, I don't know why I can't, I might have made a mistake here. My intuition is that these 2 lines are on the main layer, so I have to get rid of them. And I sketched, so now I have to do this a couple of times. I'm going to just erase these. All right, on the rough layer, drawing 9, I'm going to redo those flag rough here. I'm just going to draw that much of it. And again, we're going from this position to this position halfway. So the upper part of the node is here. And I'm copying this arc. And again, I'm laying off of just going all the way through it. It's got to go to the grommet. Well, in this case, it does go all the way to the grommet. That's fine. But at the edge, we're on drawing 9. So point your flag towards where 9 is. So, and it just happens to be in the same position as drawing 1. Let's kind of make that a little nicer. And so this is going to go to position 1 as well. And we're not going to draw this leading edge here just yet. Okay, so now we're going to do the secondary breakdown on drawing number 5 with our onion skin turned on, and we need to open this up in the timeline so we can see it more clearly. Again, on drawing 5, and now we can see it. Now we're going to do this secondary breakdown. So this node is going to go to here. But now look, it's like, where do I go? So I'm going to go just like this. And I'm going to just draw that part of it. Same thing down here. All right, so now we're pointing the very tip of our flag towards drawing 5. So 5 is right here, and we don't want that line to be right on top of this line, just for the same principle that we talked about in our pixie dust, because if we put it right there, all apparent motion will just cease, it will die. So this red line is moving into the blue line here and then into the green one. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat it just a little bit by going down, and then we're going to kind of kick it up just a little bit. We'll see if that works. It may not work. We'll see if it works. Same thing on the bottom, bring it down and then just up into 5 just a little bit. Now let's do this other secondary breakdown, the 13 position. So now we're going from drawing 9, which was, sorry, I'm not on the right drawing. There we go. So I'm going from drawing 9 into drawing 1. So now instead of, we could just draw this line here because that's what it's actually doing. But wait, the tip of the flag has to be down here. So let's back off of this just a little bit and draw just this part of the wave. And then, oh, look, we've got this to in between. And this to in between. And now we're on frame 13. So frame 13 is over here. So it's perfectly acceptable for that flag to have a curl in it. See this little curl over at the bottom right here? So we can adjust this later because this is our rough layer. But this is frame 13. So point the tip of the flag as nicely as you can, just towards 13. Just towards 13. All right, again, this is rough. We can always just fix it later. So now you can see what this looks like. You know, the wave is actually starting to work. It's only 4 drawings. You can see that it's starting to work. So we'll go to drawing 1, and we're going from blue into green. So this is drawing 3. So start at the top of the node, and then just connect it to the grommet. And then these 2 lines need to be in between. And then we're on drawing. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. I'm on the wrong frame. Hold on. Drawing 3. And this is going to point towards 3. Same thing down here. Now, if you want to get a little brave, you can try I'm on the layout layer now. You can draw a circle 8 up here that goes counterclockwise, or a circle 8 that is really elongated that goes counterclockwise. And then on the bottom, you can pick just an arc that looks like this if you want, that goes counterclockwise. And you will see the difference. Or you could even pick one that's just a regular circle going counterclockwise. This and this will give you a really nice animation. This one here is just for the demo. Let's remember where we were. We're on frame 1. We're going to go out frame 3, 5, 7 we haven't done yet. So we're going from red into green, I believe. We're going from red into green. Seven gets pointed at this position here. Same thing on the bottom, red into green. All right, and then this is 9. This is already done. Take our onion skin off. That's 9. That's our breakdown position. We haven't done this drawing yet, I don't think. Oh, we have. Okay, good. So we're going from red into green. So on frame number 11, we're going from red into green. In between, stay on your arc right here. Don't cross over at this point. The wave has to move from this point to this point. So it needs to go below. This is a bad point. And then connect it to the grommet. This is frame number 11. So point the edge of corner of the flag right at 11. Same thing down here, red into green. Connect it to the arc of motion. Connect it to the grommet. And go to frame number 11. Good. And this one is already done. And we just need to go from this drawing, which is actually frame number 15, back into drawing 1, which is part of our layout. So if we're going from red into the layout. So now we're just going from red into the layout. 15 is here. Hold on a second, let me make sure the orientation is correct. Yeah, okay, that's good. So on this frame right here, we're going from red into the layout. We're on frame 15, so we're going to connect right to frame 15. And same thing down here. We're going from red into the layout. Moving forward into frame 15. Now let's see what we've got. save, play. Oops, play. All right, so it's pretty simple. The bottom and the top are moving the same. You can see that the corners of the flag here are moving on the arc all right. There's no problem with the wave. If you look at it, you can see that it's moving to the right, to the right. It's moving correctly. Okay, so now let's talk about the leading edge. And for the leading edge, let's do one thing first here. Let's go to our first frame, turn the onion skin off, and we're going to draw a little crease. Now, this part of the flag, which is the upper part of the node, we're going to put a little crease right here. Now, this crease moves each keyframe the same distance here. So I'm going to go to the next keyframe with the onion skin on, and I'm going to just move it the same distance to the and I'm going to stop about right here because it's eventually going to become our crease. So I'm going to turn the onion skin off, and I'm going to go back to frame 1. On the layout is just to copy the very leading edges. Oops, hold on a second. I'm drawing this on the background. On the layout, just make a mark where this crease is on the layout, because then you're going to go to this frame, and this is the last frame. So this is frame 15, and it's got to animate into the first frame. So on frame 15, you're going to animate this backwards a little bit. So I'm just going to put a little mark right here, about the same distance on our arc. And I'm going to go backwards a keyframe. And I'm going to animate, oh, I want my onion skin on. So I want to animate just a little bit of this crease. And on this frame, I might not see it at all. So let's see what that crease looks like. All right, see that, everybody? Does everyone understand how I did the crease? I drew it on frame 1, and then I had to animate it forwards and then backwards. Okay, so let's do the edge of our flag. I'm going to turn my onion skin off for just a second. And I guess I'm happy with this general shape right here. But this is going to change because we do want a little crease in there. This one, even on this example, there's a little crease. So that crease that we drew here, it's going to have a fold over. So we're on frame 1. Let's go to frame 2. We can just connect these two. We could just say, you know what? If we put the line right like this, and it's a little different than frame 1 right there, it's fine. On this one, look, it moved back quite a bit. So now we can start our crease. From here, we're going to just start going up, and then we're going to continue it just like this. Eventually, this little crease this crease here is going to move into that position. Probably not on this frame, but on the very next frame. So here, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go back and I'm going to erase this, because just the nature of our planning of the arcs, this crease or the edge of the flag is going to roll over here. We're not going to see it too much. On this frame, you'll see a rollover. So the crease here is actually right here, right? And here we can actually draw a rollover. If we wanted to make this a little different, we can begin to draw a little rollover here. This was where, let me turn the onion skin back on. This is, I'm going to limit the onion skin to just the drawing before and the drawing after. I don't want to be too confused visually. Oops, hold on. Move my limit. All right, that should be fine right there. All right, so on the flag, rough, we've got that pulling backwards. We're on this frame right here. So what I want is I want to make sure that we're on frame number 9 right now. So frame number 7, the leading edge of the flag was over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cheat this a little bit on the bottom. I'm going to erase this. And I'm going to cheat it just a little bit so I can get a little bit of a rollover. And I'm going to, so that's our crease. See the crease right there that we drew? And I'm going to point it at frame number 9 up here. Now in animation, if I draw this little rollover right here, I've got to make sure to do it on the next frame or it'll pop. So on frame number 11, which is way over here, I'm going to cheat it a little bit too by rolling it over. I can just make a little hash mark in there to remind myself. All right, again, you want to draw the leading edge of the flag in a different place so that it doesn't freeze. This is where the rectangle of the flag is moving around the most. So it would be inconceivable if any of these lines were right on top of each other. All right, the next corner of the flag, this is frame number 13. Frame number 13 is here, so let's continue. We're going to cheat this just a little bit. That's a little too much. So it's supposed to be right there, but we're going to cheat this by bringing it down just a little bit. And it's starting to go backwards. So now it's going to have this kind of motion to it. 13 is up here. And we're going to cross this over. We're going to start to the right, cross over, and connect it here. All right, so this is the back side of the flag. This is just a little bit of the back slide. So now we're on frame number 15, and we've got to animate from 15 into 1. So I'm going to actually redirect this a little bit on the bottom. And I'm going to go from 15 into 1 by, oops, bringing that fold, that little rollover, just a little bit of it. And this was our line before. This is where we're going to now. And I got to cheat the top of it too. So let me erase this little bit. And connect that. All right, let's see how that looks. Save it, play. All right, so effectively it's moving correctly. I'm gonna move this out. So effectively it's moving correctly. One of the things I think that is just a little too simplistic, which is fine, you are permitted to do this if you want, is that the top and the bottom corner of the flag are moving in unison with each other. And I think that we could probably fix that by just going back and saying, hey, you know what, on our arc, we're gonna have just the top arc, because this bottom thing is working okay. Is to just make it just a circle instead of trying to have it be a circle 8, but it's effectively working. All right, so let me save this and ask any questions. So have any questions about this? 8 drawings. 8 drawings. So what I'd like to do now, and because you see that it's working, right? And you can always go back and review the video on YouTube, is just do a little helpful hint thing here. On my layout layer, so that I could always just kill it, is that, oops, what the heck am I doing? Drawing number 1, right? I'm not gonna animate this, it's just on my layout layer. Actually, let me do it down here so we don't see it. So this is drawing number 1. Drawing number 2, or I'm sorry, the drawing that would be in the middle would be this node is actually moving all the way out here. So the way you plan this is you get your arc of motion. This is drawing 1. This is drawing 1, and halfway, a quarter, and the 8th positions. And you're going to need to go backwards on your arc. Same distance. And so on this breakdown position here, this is the breakdown position. Breakdowns always get an underline. So this node right here is moving into this position. There's a bottom of the arc as well. So this arc is moving into this position like that. And then this position, that goes right here. We'll do this as a dotted line. And then the breakdown is just going from this line into the dotted line, and the dotted line into this line. But remember that everything is connected to a grommet. So you have to draw the top of the node first, understand where it's going, make sure that the wave is moving correctly, but then it's connected to the grommet. The way this works the best is if you do the moving hold like I did for this leading edge of the flag, and just draw it once, copy it, trace it for drawing 3, for drawing 5, place the first one back where it was, for drawing 7, trace it as good as you can, and do the same thing for the grommets. You know, in this presentation here with my camera moved out a little bit, there's the movement on the grommets is not crazy. It's actually behaving fairly well for a wind that's moving 11 or 12 miles an hour. For you, I think that just this process, I think that the rollover of the corner here and seeing the backside, it's not as good as the one that's just a little bit more complicated here. You know, because we can see that there's like an extra little arc in there, but it's okay. And the understanding how this works will help us when we are drawing our fire, because this node right here on the fire is going to move to this position. So we're going to understand that this is a shape, and that the fire itself is going to have the aesthetics of the fire, and that this node is going to move to here. So we have to move it upwards for the next frame. This shape right here is going to move upwards. And so when we do fire, we're going to just do the same thing we did with the leading edge of the flag right here, is animate this arc over a series of frames moving like this. But it just so happens that with fire, there's another layer on top of this where the actual arc of the movements of the arc are going to move to the right and to the left just a little bit. And with fire, this arc is really big, and as it moves up, it gets smaller and becomes embers. Does that make sense? So we're using what we learned here for animating the arc on the wave of a flag, which is literally just moving on a straight line. And now we're going to move that left and right. And with the fire, we're going to take it from a big combustion, and as it moves upwards, it's going to be becoming less and less and becoming an ember. So it can move to the right and to the left. And there's a really wonderful example of that in the board here. It might be down a little too far. I might have to, oh, this one. So this is a perfect illustration of that example where you can see, now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to draw in Zoom. And it's the most horrible drawing tool ever, but that's okay. So you can see that, hey, there we go. All right, so this little arc, that's the node, moves into this position here and gets smaller. And then that little node moves into this position here and gets smaller. And then it moves to the left and gets smaller. And then over here, it gets smaller. The fire itself is actually forgiving because as we get into it, as long as you get the idea of each one of the shapes of the fire looking like it's fire and that it's moving upwards and not going backwards on itself, it's actually pretty forgiving. And you can get a lot of fun working with a fire, again, with just 8 frames. It's like it's this thing that animators don't like to talk about too often because it's not part of that Disney lore. But within game style animation, cycling is a good thing. And learning how to get things to cycle on 8s is great because if it's moving a little too fast, it's really easy to drop it from 8 drawings into 16 drawings by just doing an in-between of everything. Or sometimes it works that you just take this 8 drawings, which is a total of 16 frames, right? And I'm going to draw the traditional box with a line through it because this meant 16 frames in animation. Some studios would say that there would be 16 frames, but it gets confusing for effects animators because we would use FX1 as a designation for any particular name of a drawing or X1 for the drawing. Because if we had several layers, we would have FX1, X1, F1 for fire, or if it was water, it would be 1, W1 or WX1. We use the X a lot as drawing number, the names of drawing numbers. And so some studios did use this 16 frames, but I learned it as this open square with a line through it. And the history is that this is supposed to be a frame gate. In cinema, this is supposed to be the representation of a frame gate. So you see it both ways, where it's a 16 with a box with a line through it, or 16X. Again, it just gets a little confusing for effects animators if you're saying this is holding for 16 frames because this could be frame number 16. All right, so if you have 8 drawings holding on 2s, that becomes 16 frames, but 8 drawings on 3s, if you wanted to slow it down just a little bit, becomes 24. That becomes 24 frames. So that's a real easy fix, just, and that's good, going from, because 2s, the persistence of vision is fine. If you were going to take 8 drawings and put it on 4s, then you've got 32 frames, which is twice the film that you were using, but it also gets a little choppy. Your animation it's very choppy going from 8 drawings onto 4s. And a lot of times the studio would circumvent this and say, okay, this is great, we approve this timing, now go back and do an in-between on every single frame. But on 3s, it's acceptable. The persistence of vision is still pretty good. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Just some animation trickery right there. All right,
Apparently
let
the person on that
me,
page doesn't agree.
what's that?
So apparently the person on that page doesn't agree.
This person?
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's pretty good. Yeah, but it's written in Russian. You'll see that fire is pretty forgiving. We try with all our might to get the little wind within the fire, or what they sometimes say is that it creates its own atmosphere, and you try as well as you can to get the left and right and this little circular motion, because air has that eddy to it, right? And you try as well as you can, but fire is very forgiving. As long as parts are not moving backwards, you'll find that it's actually pretty fun. All right, so let me go back to the classroom here. Did anybody upload anything for me to look at? Oops, what am I doing? Nobody uploaded anything for me. All right, do I have any questions? I know that I went too fast, but this is a new thing that I've been realizing over the last 2 years now, is that I try to go at a regular studio's pace, because then you can go back and look at that little part of the video if you get things, something's confusing. Something's in the chat.
Can you
Oh.
provide a link for the video for the YouTube?
The video for the what?
Can you provide the video link for when you upload this to YouTube?
Oh yeah, what do you mean for the, yeah, those are right here. So the Zoom link is right here, right? And this is the
Mhm.
alt Zoom link, but then in our classroom, oh no, it's in the discussion. So it'll say Zoom recording 11 February. Ryan, look.
Oh.
See, right here.
Mhm.
And then for today, I'll put another one in there. As soon as it's done recording, I'll put it on YouTube, and I'll put it right in the same folder here. And this folder gets really long. I don't think I have YouTube open yet. And so a lot of times students realize that as they get to my channel, they can, you don't have to subscribe to it, but here you can see the flag that I did last week for my Kenyatta people. And it's the same thing, but you need to see how this happens in real time. And then if you want to get ahead and you subscribe to the channel, you can see the flag or the fire working, you know, in here. You don't have to, it'd be a kind of obnoxious, but we're drawing. All right. So I think we went fast because it's a small class. And we go through the first part of the class with critiquing what you're giving me. And if there's only 3 things in there, then that critique goes pretty quickly. What I would like to do, what I'm going to do is, let's take another 5-minute break. And then I'm going to continue working on the pixie dust. Right? So, but for next week, I think I would like to see as close to your pixie dust final timing as possible. And this flag, you should have the flag done, at least as a rough. So I know that you understand how the waveform works. That's super important. And you'll find as animators, because most of you are animators, that understanding how that waveform works, both for a flag and for fire, and then for, I see that, Rob. Okay, I'll look at it right now. I'm trying to think. Oh, for smoke. As long as you understand how those nodes work, then the smoke will be that much easier for you. So make sure that you get the flag wave with 8 frames. That's it, working correctly. And then I'll know that moving from fire into smoke will just be that much easier. Okay, so. Look at how many tabs I've got open. OMFG. Okay, that's great, Rob. Yeah, it's great. Anything else you want to do to it?
Nope. I feel like the flag is going to be kind of a pain, so I'm going to get started on that.
Okay, no, this is great. I think that little hiccup, right? Yeah, it's not a hiccup. It was just a playback error. Yeah, it looks really great. I like how you managed to get it in 5 seconds and not 10. So it's a really good example of something moving quickly and not having to take the entire 10 seconds. And it's not only that, but you have a delay at the beginning, right? Oh, I see what you did. You trimmed the delay.
Oh yeah, that was by accident.
You trimmed it. So yeah, it looks good.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
edit
it's
it.
really good.
I'll take this one down and put the right one up where there's
How many exploding stars do you have?
I actually was overdoing it, and then as I was overdoing it, you were like, "Don't overdo it."
Yeah, no, I think it looks great.
So I toned it back a little bit.
Yeah, just make sure you put that little handle. It's called a handle on the end, at the beginning and at the end.
Okay.
So, and before we go on our 5-minute break, what I'll do is one of the first times I learned about handles was that I was at Colossal Pictures 1992, and we were working for a Nickelodeon commercial. And the Nickelodeon commercial had this rhinoceros that was really small, and he was running up into the camera, and then he just kind of supposedly knocked the camera over. And the animator on that for Colossal Pictures, his name was Dan Lee. And I was helping him do something else. And one of the production managers came over and said, "Hey, we have a call out on the floor. We have Nickelodeon wants to do a commercial with a rhinoceros." So, and he picked Dan and 2 other guys and a woman too, four people to animate, to design a rhinoceros. And they needed that design like now. They needed it in 10 minutes. And so Charlie and Dan and Ron, might not have been Ron, and Cindy all designed a quick rhinoceros. And they, in 10 minutes, they all went back over to Gordon's desk, and Dan won because Dan's design was really awesome. And by the end of the day, Dan had already animated the rhinoceros running up into the camera and knocking the camera over. I'm like, oh my God, I thought animation was supposed to take forever. And on top of that, the rhinoceros was like, the animation was wonderful. The design was wonderful. And I helped him do some in-betweens. And in just like 2 days, we got all of the animation done for the rhinoceros running, knocking the camera over. I was like, wow. And this was probably maybe my 4th month at Colossal Pictures. And now my head was just spinning. By the end of that Thursday or Friday, I was like, wow, I thought animation was supposed to take forever. And it can be done really quickly. And the problem with that was that now everyone knew that Dan animated really, really fast. And that if they knew if they needed anything, that they would go to Dan with it. But the production managers also knew that he was working extra because they needed it fast. So it was kind of like working overtime. So he took like Monday and Tuesday off and got paid for it. It's like, that's how it works in the industry. Or some of the animators would come in on Monday and Tuesday and just work really slowly to compensate for how fast they worked on Thursday and Friday. And that happens all the time. you work at a normal pace, and then your production manager or your line producer comes over and goes, hey, Millicent, can you work overtime today? And you're like, okay. Overtime, you're working at the regular rate, the regular pace. And then they say, hey, Rob, guess what? We need this commercial done today. Can you pull this off? And then you work really fast all day today, Friday. And then on Monday, you come in and you're like, you're only going to work at 50% of your pace. You know, and that's how it works. That's how it works in the industry. And you know, your deadline is next Thursday. So you know where to work fast. You know where to work regular rate and work fast. And I always tell my students, you need to know that, because the very wrongest thing that you can do going into a studio for either game or animation, or modeling, rigging, text, anything, level design, Unity, whatever you're working in, do not hit the studio floor and work at 110% of your own pace on day one. First of all, you're going to piss off everyone else who's working at a normal rate, because you're going to make them look bad. And you're going to set a tone for yourself that that's your median pace. You want to watch how everyone in the studio is working and work right along with them. You want to drive on the freeway right along with them. And as soon as they start working a little faster and a little harder, you can do that too. It's like, you don't want to show off on that first week because you're going to piss everybody off. I promise you. It's like, oh yeah, well, I can work that fast too. The idea is the production managers know that any one particular shot or project that you're working on is budgeted for 12 days, then take the 12 days. And if they know you can work faster, then they're going to say, oh, well, I can get my team, like I just mentioned to you earlier on the Wall Street Journal commercial. It's like, we were working at a regular pace, but overtime for the entire month of February. I think that I worked so much in that February that I think we all made like $10,000 in February. And that was 2002. It's like, whoa, I got my W-2s for that year. I'm like, what? And then I remembered what a pain it was working on that commercial. All right, I see that I talked too much. So what I can do today is just let you out early. I give you an early weekend. And do you all have Monday off at the Academy? Is Monday a holiday for the Academy? It's a, what's the holiday? It's President's Day. I don't think that they take the President's Day off at the Academy, but the city does. I also work for the city, so I have a free day, half of a free day on Monday. All right, I will let you early. Again, remember what I'm looking for next week is as far along the production with the Pixie Dust as you can. Make it awesome. Go back, and when you think you're done, go back and look at every single frame and make sure that every single frame looks good. You want lots of variety of shapes. You want exploding stars. You want a little pause in there if you can get it. And then get this flag animation going. It's important for fire and smoke. And as long as you do that, then nothing that we do in this semester is going to be really complicated. Nothing. It's just going to just be a bunch of work. You can put your music on and just roll with it. The other thing that I would highly recommend is making sure that you go back and start thinking of what your volcano is going to look like. And if you subscribe to my channel, you can see some of those in there. And think about what your final is going to look like, because combining effects is a really good thing for your reel. And if you can get the volcano thing done way before midterm and get it to the spring show, then that'll be good. Remember that the spring show comes at the most nasty time. It's like 3 weeks before the semester is over is the deadline for the spring show. And you're like, what? You're working on this really great thing for your final, and it's not going to wind up in the spring show until 2023.
And I know what Rob's thinking, he's like WTF all over the place. So at least you'll have the midterm to get to the spring show. And that would be the volcano. And the volcano is gonna have smoke and fire and lightning and rain and water splash and bubbles. And it feels like a final. But because I do it this way, make sure that you do it awesome and get it in the spring show. All right, we will see you next week.
Thanks.
See you, everybody. I'll put this
Great.
recording
Everybody
up
next week.
Yeah.
later on this afternoon.
See you.
Ciao.